Hi. Last week we learned about a Samaritan man who was a good neighbor by helping a stranger who had been hurt. He showed us how to serve others. But sometimes I think we forget how that we can serve others who are actually the closest to us, and that's our family. Sometimes we get so comfortable living together as a family that we forget that we should be serving our family members as well. And that's a practice that we should be in the habit of. So let's read our story today out of our Jesus Calling storybook. And this is a different type of family probably than most of ours look like. And so we can kind of see how this family was a chosen family. They chose each other. It says it's about Ruth and Naomi, and it's found in the book of Ruth in the Old Testament. Wait for me, Ruth begged her mother-in-law, Naomi. I'll go with you. Your God will be my God, and I will never leave you. Ruth was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. Her husband and his brother, Naomi's 2 sons, had died. Naomi's husband had died too, so understand that Naomi had lost her husband and her 2 sons, and Ruth had lost her husband. And so really that made Ruth and Naomi not really related anymore because they were related by marriage. So keep that in mind. So Naomi decided to go back to where she used to live. Ruth would not let her go alone. So the 2 women traveled many miles to Bethlehem, Naomi's homeland. When they got there, Ruth and Naomi were too poor to buy food. They lived on leftover grain that Ruth found in fields that belonged to Naomi's wealthy relative, and that was a man named Boaz. When Boaz saw Ruth gathering grain, he invited her to lunch. It's wonderful that you are so kind to Naomi, Boaz said. May God repay you for your kindness. Before Ruth left, Boaz made sure she had plenty of food to share with Naomi. When Ruth came home with all that food, Naomi said, God bless Boaz. He is my husband's close relative. He will take care of us. Then Naomi had an idea. She thought it would be good if Boaz married Ruth. Boaz thought it was a good idea too. So Ruth and Boaz got married and had a baby boy. They named him Obed. His grandmother Naomi loved him and he loved her back. When Obed grew up, he had a son, and later his son had a son, and that little boy grew up to be a mighty king named David. Now, in a few weeks, we're going to learn about David and his life and how he grew up. So keep that in mind that Naomi was David's great-great-grandmother. Isn't God great? He rewarded Ruth's kindness and turned Naomi's sad life into something good. God used people from different countries like Ruth and Rahab in his plan to help his children. So how can we serve our family? What does that look like? I think we need to start each day thinking about our family and what we can do to show them how much we love them. It's something that if we get in the habit of showing our family love by serving them, it will come natural for us to do that for others, even complete strangers, just like the Good Samaritan did. Ruth was determined to serve Naomi, and in that process, God took care of them both and supplied all of their needs. So let's all find a way this week to serve our families and to show them how much we love them. So we're going to go over our memory verse again about serving others. And it's found in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 and 39. And it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And that means everything about us should love God. It says, and love your neighbor as yourself. So today we're going to be sending quite a few things home with you. And the first one is our coloring page, and it shows Ruth picking up the leftover grain that the farmers forgot to pick. And Boaz is watching her and thinking to himself, I wonder why she's picking up the leftovers. And once again, your story's on the back. And I'm also going to be sending you a tracing page, and this is fun to do. It shows Ruth and Naomi on opposite sides in the different lines. So you just need to trace the different types of lines. We've got straight, we've got squiggly. So that's something. And then another coloring page. And it simply says at the top, it says, Boaz put Ruth first by letting her collect barley in his field. Ruth put Naomi first by collecting barley so they could make bread. And then we show others God's love by putting them first. And here's a fun little project that we're going to send. And this is our basket pattern. And you're going to copy it and cut it out and then make a slit here in the top. And then you will be able to cut out your stalks of barley and then put them down in the basket. You can glue your basket on construction paper, and then in the slit here, just glue your barley stalks. And I want to show you a new book that I've gotten that your mom and dad can get. And this is probably one of my top 5 authors that I absolutely love. And his name is Bob Goff. And he has written a book called Love Does. In fact, I've bought multiple copies of this book. Every time I find it somewhere, I will buy a copy just to keep around so that I can give it to someone to read, because that's how much I love his book and how much it meant to me. So he took this very popular book for adults, and with his daughter Lindsay, he rewrote it for kids. And it's called Love Does for Kids. And he's taken the chapters and written them, and it's a great book to use for a bedtime story or for a devotional book. And I promise you that you will enjoy it. And it's a great conversation starter about just life in general with your kids. So it's also a great book about how Bob has served others and showing us how that we can serve others, and it just becomes a natural habit, and it's not something that we have to think about or make ourselves do. It just comes natural to us through some of his examples. And so I've included 2 worship songs about serving. And they just both happen to be by Yancey, but I think you're going to like those. And then I've included an animated retelling of our story about Ruth and Naomi, so you could kind of see the actors in it, and I think you'll like it. So join us back here next week for another story, and we're going to look at some of the stories out of the Old Testament. See you next week. Bye-bye.